Hey everyone, Carole here, and I hope you liked the other two videos. So we looked at, getting organised, some great tips for beginning good mental health. The last video, boundaries. How have you been getting on with that? Has it made a difference? Well, I hope it's made a difference. And just to recap on that, I was saying about the different boundaries, the physical boundary, the psychological one, the emotional one, the spiritual one. It's just about separating ourselves from people afterwards for good health, for good energetic health. Now, today I'm going to talk to you about one of the greatest motivators of human behaviour is the need for approval. And when I'm teaching forensic psychology, I draw my students' attention to this area of approval because it's absolutely massive. I mean, you think about what you do in your life because you're seeking other people's approval. And if you're always seeking somebody else's approval, then my question is, when are you going to start seeking your own? Because that's what people with low self-esteem do. They're constantly looking for external confirmation that they're doing all right. Now, where does this come from? It comes from when we're children, we really want our parents' approval. And when I'm talking to people, years ago I studied attachment theory, and the teacher of attachment tells us that it's a small percentage of people that are insecurely or ambivalently attached to their parents. And this video isn't on attachment, so I won't go into that more than that. But as I've been sort of teaching for years now and looking at psychology, I don't believe that there's sort of 30-40%. I think it's way higher. I think it's like 70-80% of people are insecurely attached. We have had childhoods where we got wounded, and we might have had parents that were disastrous, what we call toxic parents, that have just been projecting all of their undone homework into us, to be quite honest. We might have had parents that have done everything they possibly could to make us happy, but it's about having not having this incoming and not having this taking away, but really it's about what are our needs. We need our needs to be met. Fundamentally, as human beings, we need this concept of approval because then we know we're doing okay. And if we see a look on somebody's face, disapproval, that can feel terrible. To get a disapproving look from your parent can wreck, I've seen it wreck people's psychology. The really nasty, hard stare that I've seen the old school parents do can wreck a child's mind, and I reflect that back to them. Of course they don't like it, but to get this shriveled up, you're being disapproved of. And so we think consciously we're doing behaviour, going for jobs and relationships and doing things for other people, but when we look underneath of our behaviour, why are we doing all of that? Because sometimes we're exhausted. We've been doing all these things for everybody else and we're absolutely exhausted. But what I would draw your attention to here is it because you've been doing it so that you get their approval? Because it might be anyway that you're with somebody, and you probably will be for the benefit of learning and progressing personal development-wise. If you had a very disapproving parent, then you're probably going to magnetise in your next relationship with somebody that's also disapproving of you until you bust out this pattern. And so, I'd like to, with some parents, when they're scowling at their children, I'd like to just kind of interject a mirror. And I am the mirror. I'm the talking mirror, and some people do not want to hear that, but I'm teaching it anyway because I see a lot of people damaged and it's not fair. And so I'm drawing your attention to this concept of approval. Primitively, evolutionarily, where does approval come from? Well, I think we're born like the meerkats in communities, and I don't think they consider whether they're approved of or not. If I went into the psychology of a meerkat, I don't think I'll find the need for approval. because they work as a community. But you see, I don't think we're born with this approval, disapproval thing going on. I think we're born without any concept of it. But when we get this disapproval coming in, then it creates the opposite. And then we want to behave so that we get approval, or what we've interpreted now, this experience of, hold on, something's up. We don't want to have that. So we then grow up into adult life seeking other people's approval, but at the same time trying to avoid their disapproval. Because if we're disapproved of, then there's a threat that we're going to be excluded from the tribe. Now, I'm all for giving you guys the tools and the tips to survive some of life's difficult experiences. And sometimes being excluded from the tribe is a good stroke of luck. Now, I know that's painful. It's painful at the heart, it's painful at the mind, to feel isolated, to feel unwanted and unloved. But actually what they're showing you is not, they're not actually telling you who you are. They're showing you who they are. Give the projections back. Maybe you were lovely, just born into a family that was really struggling. And so for some reason I want you to tell you to just get quiet about this concept of approval. Definitely do not seek it from other people. I mean, even within these videos, with absolute respect, I'm not seeking your approval because I'm just delivering some information that I hope is going to help you. Can you imagine if you're standing up in front of an audience and you're trying to seek that person's approval and this one and this one and this one? That's not the orientation to come from. You see, if you have a low self-esteem, then your reference of yourself is external to yourself. You're putting it in other people. And to be quite honest, why would you care what these people think? Why would you care? Well, I think you've been taught it because you were taught disapproval at a young age. And so I want to do this thing called re-empowerment for you. So let's turn the whole thing around. I want you to consider how much you approve of yourself. I already know if I was sitting in a classroom of 50 people, at this point there'd be a groan around the room. And if I say, right, can you write something nice down about yourself? Oh my goodness, some people can't write one thing. Now, if that's where you're at, then you know that journal I told you about, you're going to write down this word approval and you're going to underline it 3 times. And you're going to sit with that word until you understand why it hurts to consider that you may approve of yourself, if that's where you're at. If you're on from that, and I hope you are slightly on from that, then look at this word approval and just review your life. What things do you do that really, why are you doing them? I'm not saying that we're not going to help each other and support each other here, but there's a middle road to helping, but then saying, actually, I need to help myself a minute. I need to go home. Do you know what I really need to do? Is have a nice hot bath and sleep for 2 days. You see, I'll do another video on sleep. It's so essential for good psychological health. But if you're running yourself ragged, and if I come along and say, well, hold on, let's just put the pause button on here. Why are you doing that? And then we get to this concept of approval. And you're seeking approval from people who are never going to approve of you anyway. You have to learn to approve of yourself first. And then you see the other video I was talking about protection, but then you are your own protection because you've not really given anything out, so nobody's really taken anything, and so you're intact. And the last video I said about boundaries are essential, and this concept of approval is really huge. And so, these are the conversations for us to be having, maybe with other people, with our parents, if there's been damage and you feel you can and you want to repair it. You could say, well, I never felt good enough. That's really what approval translates as in our language, that we don't feel good enough. somehow we've felt bad about ourselves. It's all underpinned with approval and the need to not experience the psychological, emotional, and even spiritual repercussions of being disapproved of. So let's turn that all around, quieten it all down, stop the dynamic. I'm putting in this video, I'm putting a spoke in the wheel of this pattern of people being born and growing up thinking that they're not good enough. This may sound harsh, but I teach on intuition. We've got to start to become more calm and peaceful and resolved and intact on the inside. And then when we're interacting with each other, we're not projecting, we're not reacting. And in fact, that is the goal of psychoanalysis, is to get people to project less. And when it comes to, I study what's in between people, so the energy and what's being communicated across those boundaries, but also how you're speaking to yourself from the inside. And so your internal dialogue might need a look at. How do you speak to yourself, and is that a program? And if you've been downing yourself all of these years, which a lot of people have, then I draw your attention to your internal dialogue at this point, and looking. I actually get people to look in a mirror, and they recoil and say, "Oh my God, I can't look in a mirror and approve of myself." Well, if you can't, then you go from here. You start from where you are, you go from here, and you walk yourself through the process of learning self-approval, where you can look in the mirror and say, actually, I think I'm okay. You are okay, just let me tell you that. I'm sorry if you didn't feel that growing up. I'm sorry if you don't feel that now, but there was nothing wrong with you. Might have been something a bit off with the others, but let's let them sort themselves out. My interest is only to help you sort yourselves out. I hope you liked the video. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.